Hello everyone, welcome back to Morgan Hasn't Seen. It is the finale of our novel idea series, but
Yes.
we have the very first Hannibal Lecter movie. So, it's a nice sort of bookend of it being the first, but also the finale, and we can't quite figure out exactly what to do with that information, can we? Although I think we can, because really, I think we're going to have fun talking about this movie today. It's very, very noticeably different to those other Hannibal Lecter movies, and of course, the subsequent TV show that came during the 2010s with Mads Mikkelsen.
Mads Mikkelsen, yeah.
It is a very, very different sort of vibe of Hannibal Lecter movie. Precious little Hannibal Lecter, really, in this Hannibal Lecter movie, but plenty of interesting things going on in Manhunter from 1986. Jeannine, to close out this series, obviously based on Thomas Harris's Red Dragon. It would also get a kind of remake of itself with Red Dragon itself in 2002, I think. That is the exact same story, but a very, very different
take on it.
Same story. And I think most notably, or kind of most interestingly, maybe to start us off in conversation on Manhunter today, is I think Red Dragon as a movie has a lot of things that maybe it perhaps does better, if you want to call it better or worse than Manhunter does. But Manhunter has an awful lot of things that it does better than Red Dragon. I think both fit very, very interestingly into this whole Hannibal Lecter kind of cinematic world as really valid, worthwhile entries, and really valid, worthwhile movies of the same story. I think they feel so different to one another, but equally great, equally interesting, just having totally different takes on this same thing. Red Dragon, for my money, is far more of a sort of dark psychological horror movie.
Feels more like a horror,
This is a detective movie. This is a neon-drenched 80s detective movie. And is great, I think, at being that. There are certain performances in either movie that I think stand out more than in the other movie. I think there's a really great balance between the two of them. I don't necessarily want to spend the whole episode
kind of comparing
Manhunter and Red Dragon, because we are focusing primarily, obviously, on Manhunter. But I mean, where do you sit with comparing the two of them? Do you suppose? I mean, are you kind of in agreement that both do their own things very well?
Yeah, I think definitely I agree with that, but I do think I prefer Manhunter more than Red Dragon, because we're spending a lot of time with the Will character, and Edward Norton in that film is just kind of very bland in Red Dragon, where William Peterson is really doing a lot of interesting, thoughtful, kind of empathetic kind of things. And so I prefer his performance, considering he's the focus. I think that just makes it the stronger narrative for me. And I think maybe another big difference is the endings. In kind of looking up some stuff about this movie, I learned that the ending feels kind of so rushed in Manhunter because, Michael Mann was kind of running the crew ragged. So by the time they got to the finale, most of the crew was like, we're tuckered out. We can't do this anymore. So they had very limited crew to do anything kind of interesting with the finale. And in the book, there's a lot more kind of steps to his whole kind of final plan.
Yeah.
And so the Red Dragon was able to kind of go more into that, whereas kind of this movie
Yeah.
kind of just quickly kind of ties things up. So, but
I d
overall, I like the style of Manhunter better, and I like the depiction of the Will character a lot better as
yeah.
well. So,
I mean, I would definitely agree with that. I think what William Peterson's doing in Manhunter is this very really quite must be quite difficult to play tired yet driven, because he
right.
looks so tired in the entire
Yeah.
movie. He's worn out. He's completely sort of beside himself. He looks a shell of himself the entire
Yeah, he's
time.
kind of
Yet,
traumatized, still there's a little bit of PTSD happening,
yeah, from having to deal with, Lecter in
and
the
past
past,
trauma. Yeah.
he I think the story is that Will Graham nearly gets killed by Lecter when he's trying
Yes.
to first capture him.
Investigate
Obviously,
him.
does capture him.
Yeah.
Lecter is in prison, and Will Graham has to go back to see Lecter to try and get his help on this
Yeah.
particular case we're dealing with in this movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, there is going to be trauma there. You see that trauma
Mhm.
consistently and constantly
Yeah.
on William Peterson's face, and he
Yeah.
does look a shell of himself, yet remains totally focused and
Yeah.
totally driven on capturing the Tooth Fairy
Yeah.
serial killer, which I think is a very different portrayal to Ray Fiennes in Red Dragon. Again,
Yeah.
what we get in this from Tom Noonan, who doesn't
Yeah.
obviously appear in the movie for quite some time.
Yeah.
It's quite a while until the
We see
Francis
him.
Dolarhyde,
Yeah.
as he's
Yeah.
called, does actually appear. But I always was very struck by Ray Fiennes' performance in Red Dragon, because he's very, very creepy, very intimidating, very unhinged,
Yeah.
full of the back tattoos and just this
Yeah. Really
incredible sort of
intense. Yeah.
menace
Yeah.
that Ray Fiennes can play. Tom Noonan's Dolarhyde is kind of more pitiful, I suppose,
Yeah.
isn't he?
Mhm.
He's kind of a sadder character.
Sad, kind of
um,
insecure kind of character. Yeah.
Very, very sad sack, but then in that way, almost scary in his own
Yes, like
right.
a
Very,
nothing to
very
lose.
unhinged,
Yeah, a very
nothing to
nothing
lose,
to lose kind of.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you feel like Ray finds his Dolarhyde, if he was sane, could get by in life. You kind of don't feel that way with Tom Noonan's
Yeah.
Dolarhyde. You feel like he's going to get kind of looked down on,
I'll
and
be a bit of a pushover kind of. Yeah.
exactly, regardless of his own sanity. Obviously, it doesn't help that he actually is insane. Tom Noonan's also enormous.
Oh,
He's like
yeah. So
6'5"
tall.
or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So there's an intimidation factor there. There's a powerful sort of factor in his character there. But I don't think he's quite as dynamic as Ray Fiennes. I mean, we are talking about Ray Fiennes, but
Yeah.
I don't think he's quite as dynamic as Ray Fiennes. But he's doing the, as you say, this sort of sad sack almost. And I'm, you know, struggling to try not to use this word, almost incel energy from Tom
Yeah.
Noonan's Dolarhyde,
Yeah.
that, I don't necessarily want to call it that, because I think it's a very modern sort of concept. And this
Yeah.
is, the mid 80s. And this mentality existed, sure, but not in the
Yeah.
same sort of way that we think about it now.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's kind of like this
But there
whole
is
kind of
that.
ideology and mentality, kind of maybe if you think of something like the Beast from Split, and like
Yeah.
his kind of character motivation of like um normal people, and the differences between normal people and like damaged, in his
Yeah.
mind, people, and on his side of things, he wants to kind of try to capture that in some way, and be
Yeah.
a part of that, since he can't have that in the life that he's leading, so he kind of wants to try to take it from other people somehow,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of what motivates him.
Yeah. And he's a very sort of visual serial killer, I suppose,
Yeah.
as well, isn't he? He takes a lot in through his sight, through his eyes, through watching
Yeah, he
little
does this
light
thing of putting
changes.
mirrors in their eye sockets so, like, they can kind of
Yeah,
reflect back at him kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of visual metaphors, I think, going
Yeah.
on in Manhunter, which is very interesting. I mean, his first appearance in this particular movie as well is noticeably creepy because he's wearing that. You see it on some of the posters of Manhunter.
Yeah,
He's wearing that
like
sort
a
of
pantyhose kinda over his
yeah.
face that kinda
I'm
mushes
not
down
quite sure
his
what it was. It was
features.
almost like a pair of tights or something
Yeah,
like
like
that.
a stocking, like yeah, like a pair of pantyhose that he kinda just obscures part of his face and kind of mushes down his features in a kind of creepy way, and I think he also has kind of like a cleft palate as well, so
He
that
does,
also kind of
yes.
yeah,
Which I don't quite remember Ray Fiennes having. It has been some time since I've
yeah, it's
seen
been a little bit since
Red
I've seen
Dragon.
it, but, yeah,
But yeah, it would be a hilarious visual if it wasn't abjectly creepy, I
yeah,
think,
yeah,
to see him
and then, of course, his
wearing
kind of,
that.
like, intense '80s loud shirt as well.
Yes, look, there's a lot of what you would call stereotypical 80s style and fashion going on, I think,
Yeah,
in this movie. I think that's a great thing about it. I think it's a movie very much of its time in the
mhm,
best sort of way that a movie can be
yeah,
of its time.
mhm,
You cannot possibly make a movie of this style not in the mid 80s, not in
yeah,
1986. Yes, it's Michael Mann as well, who obviously likes this sort of style of thing.
yeah,
He does like a crime movie, obviously, a kind of procedurally
yeah,
style movie as well. But something that's very it's difficult to know kind of what to call it. I think unfairly, you could call it cheesy 80s, but I don't think it falls into the cheesiness side of it.
yeah,
Like, there's a lot of synth. There's a lot. It's
yeah,
almost, it's almost Brian De Palma's Manhunter in many
yeah,
ways. I think. I think Michael Mann's taken maybe what Brian De Palma's doing with those very, very weird movies that he made in the early 80s,
yeah.
Dress to Kill and Body Double and things
Oh,
like that.
yeah, yeah,
um, and kind of taking his own style and going, well, Brian did those movies really quite well. What if I do something like that, but still make it
yeah.
mine?
Yes, and mix it with my sensibility of producing Miami Vice TV show.
Yes, and everybody looking like they're in Miami Vice, although they're
Yeah.
obviously jetting around the sort of
Yeah,
vaguely
silhouettes
Washington
against
slash
sunsetty
Atlanta
shots and
area.
yes,
Oh
and he's
yeah,
in Florida because I think the whole part of it is that Will's character is retired with his family in
yeah,
Florida after the incident. So lots of shots of him, in sunset scenes and things like
yeah.
that.
But I think the sort of synthy score works really well.
Yeah,
The it builds the intensity so well. I think it's a
yeah.
wonderfully intense movie for not being the quickest paced movie, I don't think,
Yeah,
but a
yeah.
really focused detective story.
That's the strongest thing about this movie, I think, is the procedural stuff. It's so precise, and you feel like
Yeah.
you're really kind of learning something from this, which I think
Feels very
also
authentic.
yes, and it plays into actually kind of I think it's probably baked into the book as well, 'cause I read about the author, so I can talk a little bit
Yeah.
about him. He actually took steps to really kind of research what this kind of police procedural kind of stuff would look like.
Yeah.
So yes, of course, this is based on, Red Dragon written by Thomas Harris in 1981. So this is probably like our biggest gap in terms of book to film adaptation, because I think all of the other films we've covered were kind of like in a span of maybe 2 to 3 years. Um,
Yeah. If
so
that,
this
I
is
think sometimes.
yeah, so this 81 to finally 86 getting an adaptation. So this was his second book that he'd written after Black Sunday. As part of his research for the book, he attended classes and talked to agents at the FBI Behavioral Science Unit in Quantico, Virginia, during the late 70s. He learned about serial killers, offender profiling, and the role of FBI in serial killer investigations. After his father became terminally ill, Harris stayed for 18 months at an isolated shotgun-style house where he worked on the book. The rural setting helped him visualize both the character of Hannibal Lecter and the lead's murder house depicted in the story. The book is dedicated to his father.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, I think it's the kind of world that you would need to isolate yourself away from everybody. To kind
Yeah,
of
so the fact that he had all that time to really kind of think about what this character was going to be, and then the isolation of that, and also kind of having to take care of family, and that kind of maybe thinking
yeah,
about the families that were going to be Dollar Hyde's kind of
yeah.
targets in the film, so or in
'Cause
the book.
there's very much an invasive quality to kind of what Dollar
Yeah,
Hyde's doing as well.
yeah,
He's not like other serial killers you see in some movies, some of which kind of focus on a particular type of person. I think we get
yeah.
that very much in Silence of the Lambs, don't we?
Hmm.
With Buffalo Bill, he is focused on a particular type of person. He doesn't
Yeah,
really care where they come from,
yeah.
as long as they look
He
that
run
way and
right,
are
right
that way.
size, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So he can obviously do what he does to them,
yeah,
admittedly, which I think is somewhat darker than maybe what
yeah,
Dollar Hyde's doing.
yeah,
Although Buffalo Bill's perhaps a more interesting killer character than maybe Dollar Hyde is at many times. So there's more. I suppose there's more nuance to his personality. Isn't there,
yeah,
to Buffalo Bill's
yes,
personality?
definitely. And I think the popularity of Silence of the Lambs, the film, kind of got
Yeah,
people going back to the Red Dragon book, which then ultimately was what kind of
yeah,
decided to remake the film as well. So
yeah. Because I don't think I believe you said maybe before we even started recording. I believe you said that Manhunter wasn't a massively successful movie when it came out, which is quite
no,
surprising.
yeah, yeah, it ended up kind of gaining an audience after the fact, but when it came out, it bombed. It didn't do very well at all. So
So really, we kind of have Silence of the Lambs to thank, I suppose, don't we? Because of it being so good. Obviously, that in itself is a very different movie from Manhunter. A very different style of Lecter, that same style that you get in Red Dragon.
yeah,
Silence of the Lambs and Red Dragon thematically, stylistically are very, very similar movies. There's a certain level of quality above that you get in Silence of the
yeah,
Lambs, I think. But there's a reason it did so well critically and is still as beloved as it is. It's a ridiculously wonderful movie.
yeah.
So maybe we do have that to thank for people revisiting Manhunter, people
Yeah,
thinking about
kind of discovering
Manhunter.
it. Yeah, because I mean, I had no idea this movie even existed. Like, I was like, Anthony Hopkins, he's the only Hannibal Lecter. Like,
Yeah,
and then the Dead Meat YouTube channel, they ended up doing the whole kind of Hannibal franchise. And so they started with this film. And so typically, if I, want to watch the kill count on a movie that he's doing and I haven't seen it, then I watch that movie. So that's what kind of drew me to this film when he did this a few years ago. So yeah, it was a really kind of interesting surprise of a movie. And then kind of getting to compare it to Red Dragon, and kind of what the stories did. And he goes
yeah,
into kind of a lot of behind the scenes info about the making of the movie as well. So it was really kind of interesting to kind of learn more about it. And yeah, ultimately ended up really enjoying this movie. So definitely, this is why I decided to include this version as opposed to, but you've seen it, Red Dragon, I'm sure. So
I
yeah,
have, yeah, but
yeah,
I was also well aware of Manhunter's
okay,
existence. I think
yeah,
ever since I've been aware of the Silence of the Lambs existence, I
yeah,
think I was aware of Manhunter's existence.
okay,
So
aware of it.
I feel like I've always been aware that Hopkins wasn't the only
The
Hannibal
first.
Lecter on screen, for example.
Yeah.
So I just, for some reason, had never watched it, which seems a bit strange because this is a kind of movie that
Your
I
style,
really
yeah. Something that takes its time.
It can be my style.
Yeah.
It can be my style. It is a kind of movie that I do enjoy. Perhaps I'm likening it to those weird Brian De Palma movies for a reason, because I happen to like those weird Brian De Palma
Yeah.
movies. So I get a similarity, a similar sense with this. For some reason, though, I just never had. Maybe I watched Silence of the Lambs and thought, well, that's Hannibal Lecter ticked off, so it ain't going to get better than that. And okay, it maybe doesn't get better than that, but we're talking about real top tier historical movie there, aren't we, in something like Silence of the Lambs? So I don't think we always have to think, something needs to beat something else for it to be worthwhile and for it to be good.
Yeah.
It's still very, very worthwhile, and it's still very, very good and very, very enjoyable. And I think most notably, I think I really like I suppose, trauma getting over. That's a poor phrase to use.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean, though. Yeah. Yeah, no, I get what you mean.
Will Graham
overcoming.
Will Graham overcoming his past trauma, facing it head on, because he has to obviously go and visit Lecter, which we'll get into him visiting Lecter very shortly. But he has to do that. He's forced to do that to do his job properly. And this job is a very, very interesting one, something you don't necessarily think a great deal about in the world of the 80s. It's very, very early for the era
for forensics,
FBI profilers, serial killer profilers really getting into people's heads. It's almost the method acting of the FBI, isn't it? You have to actually think like the killer to get into the mind, to actually investigate, to actually find them. And it cannot be an easy job to have.
No. And they illustrate those scenes really well also, I think, with showing how he kind of gets in the zone. We see him kind of at the crime scene, kind of transporting himself into the experience and things like that. So I think they find a really interesting way to show his whole process, which is really kind of enjoyable to kind of sit in and take your time with. So where people might think that's slow, I found that incredibly interesting.
No, very, very much so. I don't think I think it's unfair to be condemning this movie for being slow. I just think it knows what pace it wants to take, and it focuses you in. Its intensity is still there. And I think when you're sat with Will trying to figure things out and looking like he's had no sleep for days, and just really, really getting kind of ratty with Dennis Farina, who's his kind of partner in this.
Who's the one who kind of calls him back in to service, essentially.
I mean, Dennis Farina, I believe, was an actual Chicago detective or something like that, or police officer at one point. So certainly feels like he brings
that
an authenticity to it, a grounded level to it, because he doesn't quite understand what Will's doing, what Will does in his mind. He doesn't quite get that. He just knows Will can Will has been successful at doing that in the past. So that's why he brings him on again. That's why he's so desperate almost to have him back out of retirement for this particular tooth fairy case, as it were. But I think Dennis Farina is very, 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 very good in this movie as well. He brings that ground level that you need in a movie that doesn't always feel ground level because of its style, because of its kind of over-the-top, excessive sort of nature.
Exactly, and he does kind of lend this kind of really great support that feels like it goes a little bit beyond a professional aspect, which is
Oh,
what we
yeah, they're
see kind of.
friends.
Yeah, so we see kind of the Will character also needing that, going back into this case after kind of the traumatic things that have happened to him. Um, and yeah, like you talked about, like him overcoming this trauma, I think are some of the best scenes in the film.
Yeah,
When he goes to see Lecter and Lecter kind of starts to dig at him and tell him, we're the same and that kind of thing. And he has to
yeah,
kind of hold this feeling in because he knows how methodical Lecter is. And so he doesn't want him to see him break. So he just leaves. And then we see him running kind of all through these kind of like stairways and
yeah,
kind of have a bit of a panic attack. So we know it's still affecting him, but then we also juxtapose that to him still being very capable and competent. So him really kind of fighting through these personal issues to kind of deal with that. We see him, get violent with a reporter who invaded his privacy and snuck into his room when he was in a coma
yeah.
after the Lecter thing and took pictures of him, played by Stephen Lang, who doesn't look a thing like Stephen Lang.
No, I mean, if you ever thought Stephen Lang off of, Avatar and things,
Yes, and
could
Don't
have
Breathe,
played
and
Don't Breathe, could have played Jimmy Olsen from Superman. This is
right?
kind of what he's doing here, although in a very obnoxious way, but he just looks like a really
Yeah, he looks like
plucky.
Archie from the comics. Like he's got
He
red
does,
hair and like red
but
floofy
like
hair and
poofy red hair. Yeah,
yeah,
really floofy 80s red hair.
and he's
And he just looks
obnoxious,
so
weaselly. Yeah,
very, very weaselly, very, very plucky, very,
yeah,
very arrogant and kind of
yeah,
full of himself, but in
yeah,
that sort of little energetic sort of way.
yeah.
It's very, very strange to see that kind of performance, I think, from Stephen Lang.
Yeah.
He does end up being Dollarhide's first victim we
That
see
we
on
see
screen
on
as well,
screen.
though, doesn't
Yes. Yes, because we don't see him with kill those families. We just kind of,
he? No.
go into those crime scenes. So yeah, the first victim we see is him. He's the one who he's kind of taunting and terrorizing when he has the pantyhose on his face.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's talk about these Lecter scenes themselves, though, because I feel like this is Brian Cox, obviously. I
Yes,
can't
like
quite
I'm
remember
very
if we said it's
curious.
Brian Cox.
Yes, I'm very curious to hear like your thoughts on the differences of kind of like the very
Yeah,
well-known Lecter and this version. Like
yeah.
what do you think about it?
I mean, I think aside from the two of them's performances, the sort of the world we see Lecter in both in this movie, and then let's compare it, I think, more directly, maybe to Silence of the Lambs, because you get a similar sort of investigator walking into the prison, going to the cell, and sitting down in front of Lecter scene,
Yeah.
don't you? That obviously you get with, Hello Clarice and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff in
Of
Silence of
course,
the
a
Lambs.
much more a spooky setup of her walking
Yes,
down this hallway of like,
a-
you know,
absolutely. But you know
cages of
why that
terror.
is?
Yeah.
You know why that is, though? Is because Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, and I know it's a different story, but I think Lecter in Red Dragon as well, actually feels like he's in a prison. Like
Yeah.
there's grey stone, damp
Yes.
walls,
White,
it's
white, white.
dark.
Yeah.
The orderlies look clinical, but also a bit rough.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
those other prisoners there.
Yeah.
I'm talking about in Silence of the
In terms
Lambs.
of the
Obviously
lamps,
now there's
okay.
those other
Yeah.
prisoners there. It's very dirty. It's very
Yeah.
grimy. And Lecter himself is dressed in the blue or the kind of the blue over thing
Yeah.
and the white
Yeah.
t-shirt.
And
It
his cell is
looks
very put together in comparison to the
his cells
others, who seem like kind
exactly
of mad and crazy, and he's very kind of
exactly,
composed
and
and
he's
glass and yeah.
exactly the glass in front. We see the way it's shot. You get it's the focus on Jodie Foster coming down, the focus on Clarice coming down. the tension builds, the turning of the corner to see Hopkins stood there. Hello, Clarice. How, and
Yeah, all
that
that whole
whole
thing. Yeah.
conversation starts because he stood there staring at her even before she sees him.
Yeah.
Now, that's not the case in any sense with what you're getting
No.
with Brian Cox and this particular first scene of Lecter here, because when we're not seemingly in a prison at all. I mean, I think they actually used like some art museum to shoot this prison
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's this ridiculously kind of whitewashed, brilliant white sort of
Yeah.
clinical feeling, just pristine,
Yeah.
perfect,
Mm-hmm.
sheeny place.
Yeah.
There's no dirt whatsoever.
No.
Everything is white.
White.
You know,
Yeah.
Will's coming in. There's a bit of kind of, do you know what you're doing here, Will? It's like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I've got to go and see Lecter. It's just going to have to happen. Please don't tell my wife because the
Yeah.
trauma, she
Yeah.
knows all about that. But I've got to go and see him. And he goes into the room. It's not this big corridor. It's this just doorway that goes into Lecter's
his
cell.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
Lecter's not even looking at him to start
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Lecter's just got his back to him. And the way Brian Cox plays Lecter as this, I think the way Hopkins plays Lecter is very, very regal. It's very, very sort of,
Yeah.
I am quite clearly the most
Unsettling.
powerful person. It's
Yes.
unsettling. It's very creepy.
Yeah.
And I think Brian Cox is creepy in a very different way. He's not sort of
Unassuming.
outwardly creepy. He seems like quite a normal guy.
Yeah.
He just seems very, very full of himself. He's very, very full of himself, very, very sure of himself, very, very aware that he is making Will uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's a little playful with it. Yeah.
Very playful. I think there's other scenes. There's a scene when he's on the phone to somebody trying to,
Yes.
he's in some sort of correspondence with Dollarhide. Now, how he manages to do that, it is figured out, but how he manages to do that, I have no idea how he's managing to do that from the prison cell, but he is doing it because it's Lecter and he's very clever.
Yeah.
So, but there's the scene when he's on his phone, he's being very, very playful with the kind of operator on the phone. And there's, yes, Anthony Hopkins Lecter has a little bit of a playfulness to him as well, doesn't he? A little bit of a joke to him. But there's
far less casual,
dynamic energy, I think, to Brian Cox's Lecter. There's a physicality to his Lecter that I don't think Anthony Hopkins has, but I think Anthony Hopkins has the creepiness. Anthony Hopkins has the real, I am the most powerful person mentally in this whole room. I don't necessarily think Brian Cox is bringing that same energy, but he's definitely bringing, I'm going to beat you. Like, shut up, Will. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I know I'm in here and you're out there, but
and I'm many steps
you're the one
ahead
still
of you.
thinking about. You're the one still thinking about me. I don't mind. I'm just in here with my books. I'm happy. You know what I mean? It's all I need. You're the one still thinking about me, whether he believes that or not. He's telling Will that.
Yeah, he's messing with him. He's poking at him, and it kind of works to a degree. Will kind of holds it in enough to kind of get out of there, but we still see it kind of had an effect on him. Yeah, he's much more kind of unassuming, casual, playful.
Very casual.
And all of that is still reads as kind of creepy. The fact that like we can think about, all of this kind of build up and talk to what he did to this man and how he kind of tormented him to put him in this traumatic state, and then see the man and see kind of how blasé he can be about something like that. Really just adds to kind of the creep factor of his version.
Yeah. And obviously there's something very uncomfortable about the whole area just being perfect, brilliant white.
Yeah. So bright.
Like it's a different sort of unsettling to Lecter's prison in Silence of the Lambs. That seems. I mean, both his prisons. His prison that he ends up being transferred to is that ridiculous cube thing in the middle of that.
That
room
big hole.
19
cell.
guards around him that he ends up stringing one of them
Eating
up and the nose off somebody.
Yeah.
It's a different sort of unsettlingness. It's a different
Oh.
sort of creepiness. But definitely Brian Cox is giving a performance that you want to see much more of, and you get really precious little of him
Yeah.
in this movie. Like, I know you don't get much of Lecter. I can't quite remember how much Lecter you get in Red Dragon, admittedly, but I know if we're talking about Silence of the Lambs again, I know you don't get much Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, but you get more than you get of
way
him in
more.
Manhunter.
Yes, and they kind of, I don't know if this is even in the book, but we kind of go through the whole scene of how Will caught him.
Yeah.
Get like a line of explanation in Manhunter. So I don't know, I assume the book probably does what Red Dragon does, because we open with this whole kind of dinner party that Lecter's having, and then Will comes to talk to him about a killer, and then he spots the book on the shelf, realizes it's him, and then Lecter stabs him, and that's kind of so we get to see all of that. So we get a bunch of Anthony Hopkins at the top of Red Dragon. So I presume there's probably more of him there than in this movie.
Yeah, definitely. But was I dying to see more of Brian Cox's Hannibal Lecter? Yes, and
kind of, yeah.
could Brian Cox come back in this day and age and do an old man Lecter? Why not? I think that would be very interesting to do. I mean, how old is Brian? He's still obviously doing well and critically well. Just done Succession, hasn't he?
That's not too many years ago. Yeah.
So I don't see any reason why, if we wanted to, we couldn't do some sort of. I mean, I know it wouldn't necessarily be direct adaptation of a Thomas Harris novel. I get that, which I think is a strong element, obviously, to the Hannibal Lecter movies, because you have that source material to draw from, and that source material is itself very good. So, but if you wanted to do something interesting, I think it would be a very, very interesting thing to watch. Would be Brian Cox revisiting
coming back,
Hannibal Lecter as a sort of older man, and seeing
what looks
his
like.
mentality is, then seeing what it looks like, seeing how he would play that. Would he play it in that same, as you say, unassuming or kind of low-key arrogant way? Or would he try and do his best Hopkins? I don't think he should try and do his best Hopkins.
No, I don't think he would. But would he play it like with a more greater sense of maturity or something?
Yeah. I just think people are so used to seeing Hopkins, obviously, as Hannibal Lecter, that they don't think it can be played any other way. And it really can. And it really can very successfully. Do I prefer Hopkins Hannibal Lecter? Yes, probably.
I mean, and I prefer the spelling.
I mean, I do prefer the I mean, that is how you spell Hannibal Lecter, isn't it? For some reason in Manhunter, they spell Lecter Leckor, which is not how or a T-O-R.
T-O-R. Yeah, I'm like, why are you adding all these extra letters in there? Yeah, Lector. Yeah.
It's I don't know why they decided.
Yeah, there's no explanation really that I could find of why they did that, but yeah.
Very weird. But no, I just wanted to see more of Brian Cox's Lecter, which I think is a great testament to how good he was in his little role.
Yes. Really. Yeah. Do you think had you gotten more, you could have potentially liked him more than Anthony Hopkins' version?
I mean, there could be an argument to be made, but it's the same argument that I'm making between comparing this to Red Dragon, because they're two very, very great, very, very worthwhile versions of their own story. I think I prefer, Dollarhide in Red Dragon to Dollarhide in Manhunter. I probably do prefer Anthony Hopkins' Lecter to Brian Cox's Lecter, So there's Anthony Hopkins' Lecter is in Red Dragon, but I vastly prefer William Peterson to Ed Norton, for example. And I think I kind of prefer the style of movie that Manhunter is to the style of movie that Red Dragon is. For that particular story. I don't think this style would have worked for Silence of the Lambs, Let's just say that, because then I do think we're into Brian De Palma territory. With strangely kind of uncomfortable or uncomfortably sort of treated trans characters and various other things that Brian De Palma may or may not have done in Dress to Kill. It's not exactly the most trans positive movie you've ever watched. So there is that element that I think would have also played very, into A Silence of the Lambs in this sort of style. It would have felt too silly almost, and I think it would have done Silence of the Lambs a disservice for it to be
a little too camp,
a little bit too campy. I don't think, I think you can get away with it in this, and I don't think it's campy. I just think there's elements.
But it has a very specific tone that could read as cheesy, but it plays very kind of cool, I think.
I think, another thing very much worth talking about as we kind of move slowly through the movie, not in terms of its plot, but the sort of Dollarhide romance story.
With the Joan Allen character, the blind woman.
Which is an odd one in this particular movie, I think, because that's perhaps its cheesiest sort of storyline and its cheesiest sort of scenes. If you want to, like, there's this really strange sort of chorally, but also synthy music that's played in the background of these romance scenes. That's so 1986, it's untrue. But I think certain people really are going to like that, me, and certain other people are just going to look at that and go,
weird.
This is ridiculous. This is like one of those nonsense mid-80s, kind of supposedly hard rock songs that are made by, like the song from Mannequin or some nonsense like that. It just sounds like that a bit.
A little bit. And we do get we get to see, I think, him at his most awkward in these kind of romantic scenes. So I think it plays to kind of what we were saying about the character feeling kind of a bit kind of like a pushover kind of character, because we get this really awkward kind of lingering scene on the dock, like they've just made love and it's the next morning. And I think she's outside, like on the dock, and comes up to her and he's just very kind of strange. And we get this very kind of long scene of them kind of having this morning after kind of conversation.
Well, he just does a lot of staring, doesn't he? And I know I said this before, he's an incredibly visual person. That's how he's figured out, to actually commit these crimes, to find out who these families are, to go to these families. We see Will figure all this out in a great scene towards the end.
And why he's targeted a blind woman who can't see him.
I mean, thank God she can't see him, because if she could see him, I don't think she would have.
She would go there.
But
I mean, that was a pretty impressive date that he pulled on her. Which that was actually a real tiger that they had sedated. So
it's a little bit mad how they've just managed to get a tiger into the movie. I think. I don't even know how he's managed to do that, but we don't question
what he's for him doing. To kind of think of, okay, I'm taking out this blind woman. What can I do for her that plays to that? And something that is like a very unique and specific and intense and interesting and once in a lifetime thing to touch. Like, how do you kind of think of that? So he sets up kind of this scenario with, I think, somebody he knows. I guess like in the movie they say like its tooth is getting fixed, so it's put under anesthesia, and so while it's out, she gets to kind of lay on it and touch it and kind of feel its face and all of these things.
It's a sensory experience. I think that's something that it needs to be said, that this movie is very focused on. I think sensory experiences. You get that. You get the fact that Dollarhide is incredibly visual, and he takes everything in through the sense of sight. you also get the movie itself that I think at times can be sensory overloading what it's doing as an actual stylistic movie. The visuals of the movie can be quite abrasive. The music of the movie can be quite
Yeah, I
noticeable.
mean, the Stephen Lang character kill
The
of
Stephen
him,
Lang.
yeah, it's like a burning body in a wheelchair just, like, plummeting towards the camera,
Yeah.
like,
It's
yeah,
very, very suddenly sensory overload. I think
yeah,
there's a point to be made that Michael Mann wants to do that, wants to
yeah,
focus on that
yeah,
in the movie, and I think that stays, kind of consistently there. I like that about it.
yeah.
But that Stephen Lang kill is very, very intense as well. I mean, Stephen Lang's playing it sort of, please don't hurt me. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
didn't mean to do any of this. I'm sorry. And all this kind of stuff. And Dollarhide's just calmly going about
yeah,
his business. He's
doesn't
going to do
care,
what he
yeah,
needs to do.
yeah,
And then, yeah, you kind of, there's a slow, torturous element to it. He's, showing Stephen Lang things that Stephen Lang shouldn't have been doing or shouldn't have been looking
yeah,
at or taking pictures of or anything like that.
yeah,
And then you quickly get the next scene of, I think, just this car park attendant, parking lot attendant.
yeah.
And he just kind of quickly turns around and you get that sudden burning man in a wheelchair coming at
Wheelchair
you. And it's just
wheeling at
Stephen
him.
Lang.
Yeah, and I think in Red Dragon, it's Philip Seymour Hoffman, and yeah, we just
Yes,
see him
it
on fire,
is.
but it's, like, pushed down like a public street.
Yeah, it's pushed down
Um,
the middle of the street, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
Which
but
is a bit kind of, it's less sudden, but it's equally
yeah,
as shocking in a very,
yeah,
very different way.
yeah,
Um, but it's not quite got that level of, I'm going to shove something in your face and it is going to affect your senses attitude.
yeah,
But
yeah,
that this movie wants to do,
yeah,
and wants to do very well, which is, I suppose, like you say, a shame. Kind of when we get to the actual finale of the movie, we've been through all this procedural investigation
mhm,
with Will and Dennis Farina and everybody else. It's very, very, it's very gripping, all that. It's very, very compelling.
mhm,
And you get
yeah,
that finale that then, as you said before, can feel a little lacking
yeah,
because you want more from it. You want it to last a bit longer. You want
mhm,
them to be a bit more back and forth.
yeah,
I think about the whole finale, and you don't quite get it. But I mean, if you want to speak a little bit more about the Joan Allen Dollarhide relationship, I think we can do because there's there's a time when, I mean, Dollarhide just can't take that Joan Allen even looks. I mean, she can't look,
y
can she? I suppose because she's
yeah,
black.
but
But
yes, but in the presence of another man who's seemingly
yeah,
into her, he's already kind of claimed her as his own. She shows some type of attraction to him. Um, he's still kind of dealing with insecurities even with this blind woman because they have this moment at, when he's getting pictures developed from her, and um she wants to touch his face to see if he's smiling, and
yeah,
he, like, catches her hand before she can touch his face. Um, and he
because of
just
his
says, "Yes,
cleft
I'm
lip,
smiling."
she
Yeah,
doesn't want
he
her
doesn't want.
to.
Yeah, and so, he kind of allows her to initiate everything so that he can, you know, feel some kind of confidence in that.
Yeah,
But yeah, once they've kind of formed this kind of relationship, she's getting escorted home by a coworker who's helping her because she's blind. He gives
yeah,
her a ride. He walks her to the door. He's waiting outside, and the coworker sees an eyelash on her face, and so he's touching her face, trying to get the eyelash off. And Dollarhide is watching from his van, and we see him, like, rip
now,
the whole cover of the dashboard off in, like,
yes.
this
Now, why
heated.
Dollarhide's just sat outside the
Yeah.
house watching from his van is creepy in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I
Very.
mean, he goes up and then just shoots the man,
Yeah.
very, very aggressively
He
with, like, a
grabs
big
him, throws him
shotgun.
in the bushes, and shoots him with a gun with a silencer on it several times, and then
Yeah,
just leaves his body there, and then shows up at her door, and she's like, "What are you doing here?" And she thinks it's the other guy, and, he's just, that's when he gets very kind of intense and creepy and saying
Yeah.
he's gone forever. Like, so
Yeah.
creepy. I think this is kind of the most creepy he is. And then
It doesn't actually, I suppose, strangely enough, Tom Noonan doesn't say a great deal as
no,
Dollahide.
he
It's
doesn't.
not the most vocal sort of character, is he? He's using his own physicality a lot, his
Yeah.
own presence a lot. Like you say before, he's a very, very tall,
Oh,
gaunt man.
gangly. Yeah, yeah.
You
And
know,
just his appearance
he's
is very creepy.
yeah,
So,
and he's
yeah.
able to use his body and perform his body very, very successfully, I think, in that way. While I don't feel it's as dynamic as Ray Fiennes, because we are talking about Ray
Yeah.
Fiennes, I know they decided for some
Yeah.
reason to not go the route of doing the tattoos either.
Yeah, on the back.
But
Yeah.
you get the explanation he gives to Stephen Lang about why he refers to himself as the Red Dragon and all this sort of stuff, and that's where Red Dragon comes from.
Yeah.
It's you know, Dollahide thinking himself this sort of mythical red
Yeah,
dragon.
and it's like this painting. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, condemning souls or
Yeah.
whatever it may be, something like
Yeah.
that. But obviously Ray Fiennes' Dollahide has the whole red dragon tattoos all over his
Yeah.
back, and it's this
Yeah.
very, very intense scene in that movie. For some reason, they decided to go against doing that in this movie. I
Yeah.
don't know if it was because, you know,
Budget
Tom Noonan
wise,
didn't
or
want
what
the makeup of getting all
Yeah.
that done on your back.
Yeah, or
Obviously,
be
it wouldn't be a real
shirtless, or
tattoo,
yeah.
but I don't know necessarily what it was, but I think there's maybe something lacking that it doesn't go that far. Because yes, I get creepy factor from
Yeah.
Tom Noonan's Dollahide, yeah, but does it ever really turn into horror creepy factor that I think it should do with any movie serial killer? With
Yeah.
any fictional serial killer, you need a certain level, even if it's not a horror movie, you need a certain level of terror coming from
Yeah,
that man.
and I think
And
the
do I ever
best
feel it from Tom Noonan's Dollahide? Not
Not
necessarily.
really.
I feel a creepiness, yeah, an uncomfortableness, yeah, but am I ever actually scared of him? No, not
Okay.
really.
I think for me, the most chilling kind of scene where I really found him to be scary was when he shows up at her door and he's acting strange and he's just saying
Yeah.
very short things, and you know, he's just kind of silhouetted almost, and she's confused and scared. So I think that's probably the scariest he is at the kind of
It is,
start of
yeah.
that finale with her. But I agree, yeah, like I think they could have maybe pushed it. He could have pushed it a little bit more to kind of veer into kind of horror feeling character, despite it, because you don't have to be in a horror movie to be a horrific feeling character
No,
or
no,
to
not at
bring
all.
terror to a villainous character. So yeah, I definitely think he could have pushed kind of, you know, building up to a really kind of horrific character in this kind of climax, particularly, especially since the climax is so cut down to what it actually was
Yeah.
in the book. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It does feel quite sudden almost of obviously Will figuring out exactly how Dollahide, or you know, the Tooth Fairy as it is, exactly how the Tooth Fairy has been
Yeah.
able to kind of know how to kill the families he's killed, the people he's killed. He keeps
Yeah.
watching these home
Home
movies,
videos. Yeah.
and figures it out that Dollahide must have seen these home movies at some, or I say
Yeah.
Dollahide, he doesn't know the man's name.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Tooth Fairy must have
seen
seen these home movies at some point. So how could he have possibly seen these home movies? Wait a minute. Does he maybe work for the company that produced these videos?
Yeah.
Obviously, lo and behold, yes, he
Yeah.
does, and they figure out exactly who it is based on descriptions from that. They kind of print off or fax off this kind of, because it's 1986 and they're using fax machines.
Yeah.
This printout of Dollahide's face, and Will, yeah, this is the guy.
Yeah, that's the guy.
This guy.
Yeah. Which the cop that's helping him and faxing him the images is Frankie Faison, who ends up playing
Yes.
Hannibal's orderly in Silence of the Lambs and the subsequent other films, because I think he also appears
Yes.
in both Hannibal, and I'm not sure if he appears in Red Dragon, but he appears
I
in
think he
Hannibal.
does. I think
Yeah,
he
there's
does.
a
I think he's
whole
in
kind of
all of them.
storyline in Hannibal where he kind of took a bunch of Hannibal's belongings and has been kind of selling them, to people who want kind of like Hannibal artifacts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just funny that he's been pretty much in the whole franchise.
He has. He just playing a different
Think
character here,
character.
playing
Yeah.
the police lieutenant at the end who
Yeah.
I can't quite remember for some reason what city it's in now. Is it what city is it in?
Oh, where he
The
flies
finale.
to. Yeah, he
He
flies
flies to
there. Can't
Atlanta?
remember. Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe it's Atlanta. It's very
They kind of move
yeah,
around,
they do
as
move
he's
around quite a bit, don't they?
yeah, as he's trying to
They
figure
really
out kind of what's going on.
we're not just the old Silence of the Lambs, we're in Virginia and Baltimore, and that's where we are kind of attitude.
Yeah, and then we even have to kind of move his family, because in that whole scene where Lecter is able to kind of mess with the phone and get Will's address,
Yeah.
it ends up kind of being a scary situation for his
The
family.
last person you want to know
Where you live is Hannibal Lecter. Exactly. Which does go into like probably my favorite scene in the movie, is when he decides to have a talk with his son. His son is really kind of worried about him, and his son kind of learns a little bit about kind of the trauma happening with his father. And so he takes him to the grocery store with him, and he has a really kind of adult conversation about what really happened to him. That, his job is to get into these horrible people's heads and try to figure out how they do what they do so that he can help people. And once his body was healed from the trauma of what happened, like he said, you and your mom visited me in the hospital and that helped a lot, but I still had this man's evil thoughts in my head. And so that's why I was still kind of having to work through that. So the fact that he kind of really breaks it down for his son, who's really kind of confused and worried and wants to understand. I loved him like not kind of shying away from it or babying down the conversation. He really kind of explained it really honestly and calmly, and it felt like a really just grounded, well put together conversation he's having with his son, and his son's really kind of receptive to it. And it's good for us to kind of understand the trauma that he's still kind of holding on to, and what you would expect to happen to somebody who does this kind of work. So I loved that scene. It's probably my favorite scene of him having that conversation with his son, just how mature it was and well explained it was. And it gives us so much insight about him, his relationship with his son, the honesty that he can have about that, and informing kind of this trauma that we've kind of kept hearing about. It's so believable as he kind of breaks it down in this scene for his son. So I loved that moment.
Absolutely. I think it really is wonderful. I think it's very, very necessary to add to the sympathy we have for Will, the sort of likability we have for Will as well. I don't think, I mean, Will kind of never puts a foot wrong in this whole movie. He's a very kind of likable protagonist.
Yeah, to the point where like his wife is really worried and he's like, I have to stop this. I have to stop it. And even like how Dennis Farina's character gets him to even come back. He shows him the pictures of the families and tells them, look, that he's targeting, this is who he's targeting. And that is the thing that gets him to come back, to stop the killing of these innocent families. So, his motivations for coming back, his motivations for staying on despite how kind of dangerous and hard it gets, and what he's kind of dealing with mentally. And he's still kind of pushing through. He's still very capable, talk about competency porn on this podcast of loving seeing a character just be so good at their job, and him being able to do that and be that despite kind of all the other factors going on, to where he gets to the location to solve this thing, and he knows what's going to happen. And so he, like a badass, just jumps through the glass window
to
take
he does that. a little bit rashly, I think. I mean, Dennis
Yeah, and this
Farina's there
giant
saying, Will,
yeah.
what are you doing on the walkie-talkie? Will,
Yeah.
just calm down. You don't have to go in now. I do. I'm going in. He's got somebody else in there. I'm going. Jack, come on, I'm going. And then he does literally leap through
the window within the Garden of Eden playing, like
right. I mean, come on.
Yeah. That song is doing some heavy lifting in this like
really
minimal
is.
finale, because like he uses it at first to disorient the blind woman. So he has her there and he plays it really loud so she doesn't know what's going on. Her sensory overload is kind of like messing her up. He gets close to her and then goes away and she doesn't know what's going on. And then we hear this song just kind of going, the psychedelic trip of a song, just constantly, you know, going through this whole end sequence. Yeah.
You couldn't have it in any other style of movie. It just works so well as again, I suppose, a sense of sensory overload for Joan Allen, definitely. But for us watching it and going, oh God, what the hell's going to happen here? Yeah, okay. The overall climax may be over fairly quickly, but there is something to be said about the use of that song in there, just being perfect.
Yes.
It's so good.
Yeah. So we do get kind of a brief kind of tussle between the two men.
Very brief, really.
Yes,
isn't it? I mean,
with Will ultimately, you know, we see Dollarhide kind of shoot a couple cops out the door, and then ultimately Will kind of gets one on him and is able to shoot him and kill him. Very kind of minimal to what's in the finale of the book, and even I think what they were able to do in the Red Dragon. Like I think the whole house is on fire and stuff by the end of Red Dragon. So
I don't know, maybe I was expecting a little bit of sort of, I mean, Will. I don't like to see Will. I mean, I really do find Will Graham in this movie to be a very, very likable man. And maybe this is the William Peterson as opposed to the Ed Norton of it all. I think maybe William Peterson is probably more likable than Ed Norton is if you were to meet the two of them. But I want to see him succeed, but I'm also thinking, well, in this climax, I know that before the movie begins, before the story begins, he's gone through the near-death experience with Lecter, and that's what's gone on. I'm kind of expecting something similar to happen here now. Maybe this is me not quite remembering the end of Red Dragon. But I was kind of expecting you know, Dollarhide to really give it to him, to really kind of fight for him, fight to capture him. Like there was going to be, you know, a lot of violence. I would say as well, this movie in Britain is an 18 rated movie. So, you know, that's the US equivalent of an NC-17. This is a very... It's an unusual rating to have in the modern time. You know, if you went to the cinema today and a movie was rated 18, you know it's going to be particularly nasty. So I think I just have in my mind a certain, I suppose, going back in the past, movies with that certification can be very, very nasty at times, or have you know, particularly graphic qualities to them, or whatever it may be. Did I ever feel it deserved that in the whole movie? Not necessarily. Really. So I'm there going, well, this is an 18 rated movie. Surely the climax, there's going to be so nasty violence going on. Something to give. Please, for the God's sake, I want some gore going on. You know what I'm saying?
But
it doesn't do that either.
No, it's just a couple gunshots and it's done.
And maybe it was the burning Stephen Lang. Maybe it was the fact it was serial killers at all that was giving that. There's not exactly graphic, you know,
even like the sexy stuff is not incredibly. I mean, we see William Peterson getting down with his wife quite a bit, but those scenes aren't even graphic.
Is it? No.
So, and I think it's like, yeah, it's
So
an R-rated film here, so I don't know. Just
okay, so maybe
yeah,
it's a soft 18 then. Maybe
yeah.
it's not a hard 18, it's a
No,
soft 18.
definitely not. But
Um, unless I'm misremembering it, I do think I saw it being an 18 rated movie. I'm looking at it now; it is an 18 rated
okay.
movie. So yeah, there was something lacking in that respect, I think, as well about the climax. As I was
Yeah.
just expecting
Some
Will
intense kind of gore,
to be
something to
kind of brutalized.
warrant yes, to warrant that kind of rating, yeah, but we don't
Yeah,
really get, like, a ton of blood or anything like that, um, really,
no.
so, yeah.
And as I say, not that I want to see Will go through that at all.
Exactly, but but kind of just thinking about the franchise as a whole and the other films and kind of what these
Yeah,
books are, you would think it would kind of delve deeper into some kind of harsh kind of,
yeah.
visual stuff, but it doesn't really. So,
And
yeah.
I know, okay, Clarice in Silence of the Lambs doesn't exactly go through physical uh, trauma, in Buffalo Bill's
Yeah.
situation. Does she really? It's very, very mental. It's very sensory, again,
Yeah.
I suppose, isn't
Mhm.
it? All those lights go off. But there's certain moments that do justify that movie being an 18 rated movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It's very graphic at
Yeah.
times, very gory at
Yeah.
times, and also I think objectively more brutal in how Buffalo Bill captures and keeps his victims as opposed to what Dollarhide's doing, which
Mhm.
he's not keeping anybody, is he, Dollarhide? This is the
No.
difference. Dollarhide is going after these people and killing them for his own sort of psychological I'm better, I'm causing
Yes. I
salvation
need
sort of
this.
situations.
Yes,
I
yes.
need this, I'm doing you a favor almost
Yeah.
in doing this. It's kind of that sort of sense.
I'm gaining some
uh,
type of acceptance by doing this.
yeah,
Yeah.
almost reminds me very weirdly, very weird tangent of Victor Zaz from the Batman
Oh,
world,
mhm.
which kind of he's the serial killer, in that sense,
Yeah.
and kills based on he wants a power over people, but he's also feels like he's freeing people from
Yeah.
their lot in life by
Yeah.
killing them and giving them quote unquote salvation. That's what he refers
Yeah.
to it as. It's a
Yeah.
similar sort of situation
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
Dollarhide. Obviously, Buffalo Bill's doing the whole I'm keeping you in that well, feed you
Yeah.
things, loosen
Lotion your
the skin,
skin.
I'm then gonna
Yeah.
get your skin. Yeah,
Yeah.
lotion your skin. I want that skin. I'm having your skin. I can't
Yeah.
remember it. Sarah? Is she called Sarah? I
I
feel like
think
she's not
so.
called
Yeah.
Sarah.
Maybe.
I'm having your skin. I'm gonna tell you I'm having your skin.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm gonna do because I'm the world's creepiest man.
Yes.
And then wear the skin and then all this business. It's very nasty. You're not getting that here. You're not getting that in the story of Red Dragon. You're not even getting that in the movie Red
Yeah.
Dragon. It's not the same sort of serial killer. But yeah, there's something too quick about the ending of
Mhm.
Manhunter. I think
Yeah.
unfortunately, and then after that, obviously, it's just Dollarhide's dead. Well done, Will.
Yeah.
Um,
Go home to your
Go back
family,
to your
back to the
family.
beach. Yeah.
In fact, does he not go and see the family who Dollarhide was kind of planning on killing next or something like that to kind of see, have I misremembered that?
I
To
don't think
see
I
kind of
don't
what
think so.
maybe I've misremembered that completely. But he does definitely go back to kind of his family and it's all well done, Will. You can actually retire now, don't worry
Yes, and
about
be
it.
done with all of
Um,
this. Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
don't even get a final looming threat of Lecter. I mean, he's still
Yeah,
there.
no, he's still there, just hanging out. Yeah.
He's still in prison. Like,
Yeah.
he knew Will's former address. I'm sure he's trying to get Will's current address.
Oh, I'm sure he could find a way to do that, but
You know,
yeah, no, we don't get any more of him, which is kind of a bummer, but
we don't. We
overall,
don't even
just
get him
like
escaping like he does in Silence of the Lambs.
yeah, having an old fence for dinner. Yeah, we don't get it, but
Wearing
yeah, no,
a
overall,
fancy suit.
Yes. I mean, but yeah, overall, I really enjoy the style of this film. I think William Peterson is great. I mean,
He's the best part of I think William Peterson is the
yes. I
best
mean,
part.
he would go on to be like the main CSI TV show guy. So,
Yes.
continue on to, playing a good police work person. But yeah,
I don't think William Peterson actually likes his performance in this movie either. I'm sure I read that somewhere over the past week.
really,
I don't think he likes his performance in this movie, which is baffling to me because I
he's the
think
best part of
he's
this
so good.
movie. Yeah. I think he's so good. He is what kind of makes me like this film a little bit better than Red Dragon. Um,
Yeah.
because it's so focused on him, and so he needs to kind of be doing a good job, whereas Edward Norton is kind of very bland. Edward Norton, a great actor, but as
Oh, a
this
great
character,
actor.
just very bland in comparison to the other two very strong characters in the movie.
Yeah. I think also
Yeah.
maybe the difference there with Ed Norton, obviously, is Ed Norton himself, as I said before, doesn't tend to be the most likable person. So he's good at playing people you don't like, as
Yeah.
opposed to playing people you do like, or you
Yeah.
are supposed to like.
Yeah.
I still don't think Ed Norton's ever been better than he was in Primal Fear, but there you go.
Oh yeah, his first role, like
Yeah,
coming
I
out the
think
gate
he's
swinging.
so good in Primal
Yeah.
Fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Manhunter, Michael
Yes.
Mann,
Mhm.
exciting.
Yeah.
Suppose gets us a little bit, eases us into some 80s neo-noir, as it was,
Mhm.
given that later on in this year for November, in Morgan hasn't seen, we're
Yeah.
going to be looking at some 80s neo-noir for Noirvember, obviously.
Yes. Yeah.
As well as our typical stuff over on the main show. We are planning an 80s neo-noir series.
Yes.
Of which Manhunter you can put in there.
Yeah, and I think that's why I kind of thought about doing an 80s neo-noir was because of this film. But then I found some other really good films and films that I haven't even seen that I thought would
Yeah,
fit that better. So then
definitely.
that's how I
I'm excited for
crafted
that.
this novel idea series. So
I am incredibly excited for that particular
yeah.
series, I
Yeah.
must
So
say.
it'll be some new movies for me as well in that series. I'm excited.
I do think, though, I need to do my ranking, don't I?
Yes.
Which
Yes.
is maybe surprisingly, quite easy to start the year
Mhm.
off, I must
Okay.
say, on this. I think it's a fairly simple 4-3-2-1, to be
Okay.
honest, in terms
Cool.
of the weeks.
Okay.
I think Manhunter's my number 1, Chocolate's my number 2, Bone Collector's my number 3, and Beaches is my number 4. I don't
Okay.
see it being any other way. I think you really curated this series to just get better and better and better and better
Okay,
as it
I
went
like
on.
that. All right.
And it's the only logical way. I'm not saying that as a cop out. I genuinely
Yeah,
believe
no,
it's the
I'd have to
case.
say that's probably my thoughts as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think they're all very good
Mhm.
movies.
Yeah.
Definitely. They're all very, very, we had great discussions on all the movies.
Eh
This is a better serial killer movie than The Bone Collector is, I think.
Yeah.
I would have to say. Chocolat was just so
So
good and so
delightful.
sweet.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna say it's more. I mean, what's more of a Morgan movie, Manhunter or Chocolat? Just think about that. I mean, I like Chocolat.
Yeah.
I really did like Chocolat, but
Yeah.
Manhunter
Yeah.
is more of a, I need that sort of style, don't I?
Yeah.
And Chocolat
Yes.
had a lot of style. I really, really loved the style
Mhm.
of Chocolat, I must say.
Yeah.
I really did. It would be a toss-up between them two quite comfortably. I think it's quite close, to be
Yeah.
honest, between
Mhm.
Manhunter and Chocolat, and then Bone Collector and Beaches, a little bit further down.
Yeah.
But I'd have to say it's 4-3-2-1 Beaches, Bone Collector, Chocolat, Manhunter.
Okay, I like that. And I like that the series kind of was a good mix of like box checkable stuff in terms of actors, in terms of film popularity, in
Oh yeah,
terms of just like,
this
franchise
feels very
placement.
notable.
Yes.
This movie feels very, very notable for me
Mhm.
to be checking off, and I know we do go back to notable, very, very notable movies again and again and again on Morgan Hasn't Seen,
Yeah.
don't we? We do
I think
that.
we're gonna have some big ones next month. So
we are actually, aren't we? We're gonna have some pretty big ones in a particular style next month, I suppose.
Yeah.
Don't we? Do we want to tease the old series? We don't necessarily have to get into the movies themselves,
but we can
because,
say,
of course, the announcement posts and videos will be going out very shortly.
Yes, but it is February, Valentine's month, so we are doing 90s rom-coms for February.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when we're saying 90s rom-coms as well, we're talking at least 2 very big
really
ones.
big ones that you have not seen. Yeah.
Really, really big ones. So do look out for that. Do look out for the announcement posts and videos, of course, coming very shortly. And thank you for listening to today's episode of Morgan Hasn't Seen. We have reached the end of another great series here on Morgan Hasn't Seen. The novel ideas have been idearing.
Been very novel.
And very novel. They have been very novel as well. It's been a good time. Of course, it's not the only show we have on the It's a Wonderful podcast feed, though, is it? The main show is there every Friday, celebrating old movies, of course, as we always love to do. Probably the thing we love to do the most, really, on It's a Wonderful podcast. Our TV-based shows are there on a Monday as well. We recently, this week, just finished Palling with Peacemaker, and we know no more of that to come. So we'll be back next week with Discovering Dawson's Creek. And of course, we're always talking TV on a Monday. That's the name of the game on a Monday. Show every Wednesday and the main show every Friday. Subscribe wherever you are listening to today. If you are watching today's special video podcast episode, It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel, do subscribe and ding your notification bell there too. You can find things have been scrolling at the bottom of the screen all episode long as well. If you want to support us on Patreon or donate in any way, you can find links to do that in the description of today's episode, or just find us, of course, on and across all the social medias, on the app formerly known as Twitter, and on Blue Sky at It's a Wonderful One. You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at the Purple Dawn with a 3 instead of the E in the, because Jeannine.
3 is a magic number.
On Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky at the Purple Dawn. All your man hunting is where?
You can find me at Jeannine _ on Twitter, Jeannine Devine on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. And if you want to get any merch for any of our shows, just check the description for the link or search G9 Design on tpublic.com.
Well, a Hannibal Lecter impression to end us off, please. If you don't mind. I mean, you could do either Hannibal Lecter.
I know, but they're both
Anthony Hopkins,
so specific.
He is, but Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter is at least more of a recognized impression.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I don't know if you can do the tongue thing.
I don't know.
Do the tongue thing. It's difficult.
Maybe on the spot it is. 3, 2, 1.
Bye.